Yeah, sold out show tonight. Appreciate everyone being here. Yeah,
Hot topic, man.
hot topics. It's the hot topics. Yeah, Narcissism Edu. And everyone jump. Oh, okay. I guess I better start. Hello, Craig Smith here, my biz guide, business of being human, your friendly neighborhood wellness advocate, with another Friday night wellness workshop, continuing our Narcissism Edu series. Yeah, cut take 2000. Continuing our Narcissism Edu series with Narcissism Edu Colonialism. This is part 5 in a 6-part series so far. So one more. So that'll be a secret what the next one is. But yeah, hot topics, Narcissism Edu. You say narcissism and everyone's like, oh yeah, all enthusiastic. But when those fingers start pointing back to ourselves, when the mirror's held up, people are like, oh, I think, maybe clenching up a little bit. So, but yeah, appreciate everybody's here. And yeah, it's that time of year. There's festivities going on and family time. So hope everyone's enjoying that. And even, I don't require the video to be on or people to be super attentive. It's good to just, put us on in the background while you're doing dishes or whatever. I know a lot of the wellness videos I listen to, some of them are several hours, listen to Sadhguru, Gabor Mate, Eckhart Tolle, um, those, um, yeah, a couple more, but yeah, a lot of those are, 1 hour, 2 hours. So I just throw them on while I'm doing some other stuff. But anyways, yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. Hot topics. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first, or more EDU for the EDU series here. Format, we'll go for about an hour and a half. And pretty much I run through everything. So I'll be motor mouth for almost the whole time. I like to take a break about 45 minutes or an hour in, ask if anybody's got any questions. Although if anybody has anything, say just, raise your hand, or butt in if you think you can do it at a good time. Um, and then we go into the what we call the after party. So after the hour and a half is done, then I'll cut the live feed. So everybody that's watching on Facebook, man, that's great. I appreciate you. But the real interactive time, the after party, is after I cut the Facebook stream. And then, because a lot of it's sensitive topics, and we just want to have respect for everybody here. And so people can, just say what's on their mind without it going out to the entire Facebook world. So that's a little bit about the format. And then, everything that I'm sharing here, it's things that work for me. It's my observations, and I think that, when we say the business of being human is really about being intentional about our lives as humans, or whatever we identify as, right? Um, and I think that one of the most human things we can do is share our introspects. We all got um, the same basic operating system, the same basic human operating system. So we've all gone through, basically, we're all going through the same thing, just in an individual experience. So there's so many things that we go through. So, and when we compare these notes, when we compare our experiences, it just helps us grow exponentially, and it helps us understand exponentially. And, for our cognitive thought process and growing our thought process, being intellectual, being sentient beings, right? Uh, that's just super important to do that. And it's pattern recognition. At the core is pattern recognition, is that, oh, look, everyone's going through this same things. And this topic tonight, while everyone's have this relationship with narcissist, this word that we've attached to these behavioral patterns, everyone's familiar with. And so, oh, where is that? Where is if everyone's familiar with it on an individual level, which is how I like to speak, because that's how everyone really understands. So when we say in a relationship with a narcissist, like literally everybody's hand goes up. And it's like, oh yes, I understand these. I understand that feeling. I've been through the gaslighting, the false narratives, the lack of emotional wellness, first and foremost. It's these hallmarks of of narcissism. But it's really good introspect to see these patterns and this pattern recognition. And there's a thing that what's wrong is right. Now, listen to this. What's wrong is right. Okay, because we're on this planet, everything works perfectly. And there are modalities in place. We have no idea, how they got here or whatever, but there's modalities in place that help things learn and that help things grow. And the catch is that if nothing's wrong, something has to be wrong in order for it to be identified. Like if our toe hurts, we know, oh, my toe hurts. Did I cut it? Do I need to put a Band-Aid on it? It's like something's wrong. It needs attention. So if we have these behaviors in society and in our individuals that something's wrong that needs attention, and oh wait, isn't this like the core of narcissism and the core of hurt people crying out for attention? So that's pattern recognition. That's understanding these things. And of course, understanding gives us the leverage, gives us the context. So when we first get into a situation, and I'll just say, toxic relationship to make the conversation simple, it's overwhelming and it's scary and it's like, oh, WTF, all this stuff's going on and this isn't right. And it's so overwhelming. But when we get out of it and looking at things from the 30,000 foot view, as they say, or looking at things through a more holistic perspective, human behavior, like what is actually going on here? What compels this person to behave this way? Or what's going on with these behavioral illnesses? So to understand that, to sit back and understand that, oh, it's hurt, and yeah, hurt people, and it is sickness, and that's why we mentioned addiction in there too, and people, that scarcity mindset and that fear and that coyote in a trap sort of mentality that we've all experienced, that even though we might be trying to help someone, someone that's hurt, someone that's feeling vulnerable might not be in a position to receive that help, and they bite. You could very well get bitten if you try to free a coyote from a trap, and you can very well get bitten if you're trying to help your fellow human grow through their sickness, grow through their challenges. But we got to do it. So it's real challenges. So it's super important to understand that. So yeah, okay. So first one, here's your trick question. I'm going to pick on Gray a little bit. What's tonight's topic about?
Colonialism.
Wrong. That's
No.
just the name. That's just the name of the talk. It's about habitat, is
I was
what
gonna
it's about. It's about
America,
habitat.
where we live.
Well, so yeah, but okay, here's the deal. Everyone's had this interaction with narcissism, right? So if everyone's around us is a narcissist, where's the societal reflection of that? So that's where we're going. And since we are all connected, since all the people are connected in a whole bunch of different ways, that's our environment, that's our habitat. It's like the commonality, the common place that the average psychology is at, where the average mentality is at, the average is what we got. And so if most people are sick, basically, then we're in a habitat of sickness. So understanding habitat is super critical. on a whole bunch of different ways. And again, yeah, coming at things from a background in earth science, fisheries, forestry, wildlife. Key point, and I'm going to repeat it again because it's just so powerful, is one of the main things when we talk about earth science is you don't understand an organism unless you understand the environment that it evolved in. And that's a lot because the environment, it's a not just singular thing, of course, it's one word, but it's an infinite uh, grayscale variety of factors that help shape the organism. So an environment, yeah, water, what kind of water, what's in the water, where's the water, all these kind of things. It's just huge, huge. And then you're getting back into the evolution of the organisms that are in the habitat of the organism that you're studying. Um, Pathogens, understanding the pathogens. If next thing is next concept to understand is if you want to help the organism, you have to understand the pathogen. Okay, huge. So you have to understand not just the life cycles of the organism, the life cycles of the pathogen. Personal note is that this is something that really keyed me in when I understood this again when I was maybe 22. And I'd known this since way before that, since 10 years before that, from being in, natural sciences. But when I was 22, I took that information to understand, to help the organism, you have to understand the pathogen. And I took that as the planet on a planetary level, because I was and am distraught about the state of the planet that we live in, talking about environment. And what's the pathogen? The pathogen is the people. So that means you have to understand the people and humans. And so here I am. So understanding the habitat is super critical. And it's first, yes, understand the natural habitat. We'll maybe go into that another time, but that's super critical. Understanding natural habitat, natural factors, cycles, ebb flow, balance, challenge, connection to everything. Understanding the natural habitat and understanding those natural laws are super, super critical to doing our introspect. And we can see when we're just going through a cycle or ebb and flow, especially compared with contemporary society that has this paradigm of infinite linear upward trajectory. That's not a real thing. But if we're trying to grow and we're growing boundaries and we say, okay, here's narcissist, there's narcissist, here's people that are not healthy, that don't have a healthy environment, right? Not conducive to my growth. Basic, everyone knows this. This is just narcissist 101. It feels, you can feel, you can tell you're with somebody, around somebody, however the relationship is, they're just not conducive to your personal development. Short version, short version, that's my definition of narcissist. That's the easy way. Okay, but everyone's had this experience. So it's not just a one-off. It's not the purple cow that someone saw 2 million years ago. It's not a rare occurrence. We've all had this experience. Everyone knows what this is like. People looking at things from their individual view and ooh, I'm in a relationship with this, or here's the people in my circle. Here's the people that I have to deal with on a regular basis, and that's it, right? Okay, so that's one lens that people have a tendency to look through. But if you don't understand that so many narcissists, a group of narcissists, right, and large groups of narcissists, that's going to have an effect on the collective. So the collective, basically, short version is the collective's made of narcissists. Colonialism is the societal reflection of narcissism. I'm going to say it again. Colonialism is the societal reflection of narcissism. Okay, that's it. Show's over, everybody. Go home. You get it now, right? Now, we'll go into a few other things. But that's the big aspect, and that's the thing to understand about habitat. Because while we're looking at our immediate circle, this part right here, there's everything else around us that we're not looking at that's still affecting us. And in other talks, this is an exact parallel to what I call direct trauma and indirect trauma. But actually, the indirect trauma, we could say, is responsible for the direct trauma. Bear with me. Yes, I will explain it. Direct trauma, things that are happening to us, right? And this is adult conversation here, so trigger warnings, of course. Things that happen directly to us. Okay. And for example, people, addiction, suicide, rape, right? Trauma, the big traumas, those are things that happen directly to us. Those are symptoms of a sick society. Those are symptoms, primarily, those are symptoms of colonial society. They were dealt with differently in other pre-colonial societies. Now, so those things, those traumas that happen to us individually, that's what we have a tendency to focus on. And healing trauma, right? We understand that, right? But if I say government money clocks, yeah, not the same effect, right? I can say those other things. I can say the direct traumas, those harsh ones. I can say addiction, and everyone's tenses up. If I say government money clocks, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe they're not so good either, or whatever. Not the same thing. But those are symptoms. Those are symptoms of a bigger picture, and those things that perpetuate these. It's a society that enables and perpetuates individual sickness, right? And if the narcissism, that's basically sick individual, right? That's an individual that's struggling, scarcity mindset. And we went through one of the last workshops was addiction, scarcity mindset, not doing the personal development, poor connection with self, poor connection with others. So that's the individual. So if the individual's got poor connection with self, poor connection with others, where's the societal? And isn't that what we see in society and reflected in society, is that lack of connection? If you think about your experience in a relationship narcissist, and now think about your experience as someone in America, and tell me that's not the exact same feeling. And we're going to talk about those things. And I say America, but it's colonialism. All the big governments all got in place, not because their neighbors invited them over, because they saw that they were so good at facilitating wellness in their communities. They're there because they bullied their way in, conquered, and killed, right? So bully factor, narcissist, bully factor. Okay, there's one. The need to be in power, the need for power. That is colonialism. The big governments, that's like the quintessential. If someone says big government, power. Oh, if someone says narcissist, power. That's power. But It's only, listen to this part, it's only power for the sake of avoiding responsibility. Okay, it's a million ways backwards. I'll say it again. The narcissist only wants power for the sake of avoiding responsibility. Because isn't that a hallmark of narcissism too? Avoidance, avoiding responsibility, denial, all that, all that sort of thing. The narcissist, it's all in the blame game. That's the racism part. All those, all those things. And then if we look at the government, and again, I'm saying America because that's the one I'm familiar with, but it's all governments. You know, I say, yeah, welcome to America, but it's colonialism. It's colonialism, the big governments, the societal reflection of the individual narcissism. And isn't that what the government does? It wants all this power, but what does it do with it? Nothing, 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 nothing. And isn't that when we hear the red tape? Isn't that the exact same experience we get trying to talk with a narcissist? The red tape, the shell games, the blame games, all that, trying to get something accomplished with a narcissist, trying to get something accomplished with government, pattern recognition, pattern recognition. So there's that part of it. Fighting for recognition, fighting to be heard, fighting cognitive dissonance. Is this your personal relationship or is it just America? Think about those two things. Think about those two things: personal relationship, contemporary culture. Fighting for recognition, fighting for your voice to be heard, fighting cognitive dissonance. Those things are just the exact, those are the exact mirror and all the red tape in colonial societies and the shell games. Talking to a narcissist is think back to times that we've tried to have a serious conversation with someone that is, you know, what's the term? An addict? Same thing. An addict, a narcissist, same thing, because you get the same thing. You get the same type of responses. You get the same type of reactions. It's the avoidance, it's the lack of accountability, and it's always, always, always changing the subject into something else. It's the shell game. It's, oh, no, well, what about this? What about this? The whataboutism. What about this? What about this? It's always avoiding the real conversation. You never make that connection. You never make the connection with the individual because they're not connecting to themselves. And then that same thing on the societal level, we don't have that relationship with the government. It's that same jumping through hoops, spinning wheels, spinning wheels, spinning wheels. That's the same reflection of being in relationship with narcissist, talking to a narcissist, the spinning wheel factor, trying to get things done in the government, spinning wheels, spinning wheels, spinning wheels. Nothing, nothing, nothing ever happens. Red tape, red tape, red tape. When we're spinning wheels, let's not forget the frustration factor. Trying to have a good conversation with narcissist and the government. Frustration factor. And it's all how we feel. How does it feel? And this is the conversation that we don't get with a narcissist. This is the conversation that's not reflected in contemporary society, that's not reflected in the government. You can do whatever you want to do, but there's no emotional component. The emotional wellness is not present in contemporary society, in the individual or in the collective. contemporary society, colonialism, um, however, however you want to say it. I actually thought of a new word for it here. Let me think about this again. Where's it at? Where's my notes? Societal narcissism, colonial society, contemporary society, societal narcissism, all that exhibiting those same factors, that frustration, the shell games, the red tape, the spinning on wheels. And then the other thing is that the classic one where you get a little glimmer of hope. There's a little glimmer of hope. For example, in America, in the political system, they'll show you Bernie Sanders, but you won't get Bernie Sanders. It's like, oh, here's Bernie, and boop, switch. It's the bait and switch. And isn't that the same thing? Relationship with narcissism. Oh, a little glimmer of hope. And then everybody that wants things to be good, that wants things to be right, they're want to have things be okay is so overwhelming, and it is overwhelming, but we need to put it in perspective. But that's the shell game of the narcissist, that you give somebody a little crumb and then they're good. Oh, they bought me flowers. We had a blow up, but then they bought me flowers. They said they were going to change, and all that kind of thing. And isn't that the same thing we get with contemporary politics? It's like, oh, here's a little glimmer of hope, and then it sucks again forever. And here's a little glimmer of hope, and then it sucks again forever. And it's all the false narrative. It's always the false narrative coming along that, oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. I'm great, right? Because you got to have the bravado. Oh, Narcissism 101, the bravado. You got to have the bravado. And welcome to America. The bravado. You got to have the bravado. So what I'm saying is these things, to understand that while we're looking at our individual situation, there's a whole collective situation happening. So part of these conversations, if we can understand we're all part of the collective and understand that that collective, our understanding of the collective gives us leverage, and our understanding gives us leverage in many, many different ways. That's the most important thing. It's not about blame. It's not about using these labels. It's about understanding human behavior through simple pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is even beyond human. Everything recognizes patterns. But that's the core of our understanding. That's a core of when things make sense. It's pattern recognition. And oh, look, here's the individual effect, and then here's the societal effect. Because we can't possibly think that we're going to grow out of the revolving door of relationships with narcissists if that's all there is around us. If society is more and more enabling things conducive to narcissistic tendencies, then that's what we're going to get more and more until we understand it well enough to start undoing it. And that's what we've got to understand. We've got to outwit the nitwits is what the challenge is. You know, the narcissism is not doing personal development, the cognitive dissonance. So the cognitive dissonance game, that's always a thing. And what do we have? We have alternative truths. So no one can say what's what. No one can say, hey, look, this is really no joke. This is really a problem. This is actually what's happening. We're actually on a planet. There's actually environmental concerns. No one can say that. You know why contemporary society at large can't say that? Because they're still perpetuating these things in contemporary society. People say, oh yeah, narcissist this, narcissist that, but I'm American. And just to be frank, you just blew it then, you know? America is a government. It's not, it's not the landmass, it's the governmental system. False narratives 101, right? The government. Does anybody want to be controlled by the government? Does anybody want to voluntarily say, yes, I'm just a pawn of the government? No, but everyone says American, everyone calls themselves American. You're not American. You're, whatever country you're from, what other ethnicity. American is not an ethnicity, it's an overlay, it's a superficial overlay. Narcissism, colonialism, superficial overlays. It's not really what's going on, it's a reflection of sort of what's kind of going on. But to buy into that, there's the trap. There's the trap. Yeah, everyone's, you know, Russian, American, whatever. That's not your ethnicity. That's not your biology. Those are governments. So when people identify with a government, would you identify as being narcissist prey? Hi, I'm just a plaything for my narcissist. I'm proud of it. Got my shirt that says plaything for narcissist. No, but you got your shirt that says America. Same thing. Same exact thing. So how do you expect to grow through your personal relationships with narcissism when you're perpetuating colonialism? That's a challenge. That's the direct trauma, indirect trauma. These things that you don't think about are seeping in. To be aware of challenges is critical. Be acutely aware of challenges critical. That's never going to go away. Just because there's not a lot of big predators, most people don't have to watch out for grizzly bears on a regular basis. Most people don't do things that are a imminent threat to their life, to their physical life. But that doesn't mean that that natural law just goes away. That natural law of challenge doesn't just go away because we don't have physical challenge. We've still got mental, emotional, spiritual challenge. And to be acutely aware of behavioral patterns, what's the most likely someone's going to get hurt by another person. So being aware of those behavioral patterns, that's just a natural thing. That's being an organism on this planet. Being an organism on this planet is to watch out for threats. So threats to the in contemporary society now, those threats have got diluted so much. The concept of a threat has got diluted so much that it includes a threat to ideologies, the threat to the ideology of America or Christianity or whatever kind of ideology, the threat to people's right to habitually engage in cognitive dissonance. That's a threat. And isn't that the threat that we see in our relationship with narcissists? It's a threat to someone's right to engage in cognitive dissonance. When we start prying, when we start asking someone for real, what is going on with you? That's when we get that coyote in the trap, that hurt individual, that they're not engaging in reality. They're not engaging in real threats. They're too busy. They're too consumed with the threat of their own insecurity. Oh, security. 2A, homosexual. Security. What does security mean? Defense, home defense. Security, having the ability to annihilate the challenge. Well, that's not really Killing the challenge. Oh, this is the same mentality that killed all the big predators too. Welcome to colonialism. Getting rid of the challenge, annihilating the challenge, killing the challenge in its physical form is not necessarily the full scope of what challenges are. And that's a critical component. So to look at our species and look at human behavior to where destroying the challenge altogether is the go-to. And people are so wrapped up in, speaking with the American mentality, so wrapped up with firearms. And oh yeah, I'm a firearm owner. Absolutely, 100%. But I don't identify, that's not my identity. It's like American is not my identity. These are not things that, this is this is not what I identify of. This is not what I build my persona around. And it's super important to understand if someone's building their persona behind this defense in the form of offense, that's a huge sticking point. That's a huge, huge sickness to understand, where it's, oh, we just eliminate the problem. Well, just eliminating the problem, there's a reason challenge exists. And challenge just doesn't just go away. Challenge comes in many forms. Challenge, I think that's such an important natural law to understand. And the challenge of life or death facilitates life. And when we talk about challenge and with people being humans having the capacity for objective thought process, what are the things that sharpen our objective thought process? So to communicate with each other, to work things out, to understand where people are coming from, to understand people's wants, needs, insecurities, aptitudes, frailties, that kind of thing. That's a critical thing to understand. To default to the point where everybody's either friend or enemy is the lowest possible concept that someone could work off of. But yet, if we were to do a psychological profile on the stereotypical narcissist person exhibiting narcissistic tendencies, that's what it is. Everyone's either friend or enemy. And in the conversations, the in situation conversations, you're either helping or hurting. Well, that's not real understanding. That's not real understanding. Actually, the part we're always either helping or hurting. That part is actually, I'm going to backpedal just for a second because I say we're always either facilitating growth or enabling addiction. And maybe that's a little bit more dynamic way to say it. But a lot of people are either are you helping me get whatever I want and enabling people on their wants, on their egocentric pursuits or not. And that's what we get stuck in. And then, oh, here we go again. Welcome to America. Are you American or are you not? Oh, you're un-American. That's the classic throwing shade. Oh, you're un-American. Oh, you're un-American. We can take up arms against the United States government. That's in the Constitution. People can overthrow the Capitol. That seems to be relatively okay. But don't talk bad about America. Don't talk about, oh, you're un-American. That's the first thing. You're a commie. You're a commie. You're not down. You're un-American. That's the first false narrative. That's the first throw shade on. And again, societal narcissism. That's the collective reflective of the individual. Oh, well, you're just this or you're just that. Confusion is the biggest source of mental unrest and emotional discomfort. And isn't that the deepest part of dealing with narcissism, colonialism, addiction, racism, that confusion? How can people be so distant from empathy? How can people be so distant from each other? Well, if they're distant from themselves, they're going to be distant from other people around them. And I think that point always needs repeating, is to understand the narcissist. The reason you can't talk to a narcissist is because they're not talking with themselves. They're not communicating with themselves. They're not in tune. They're not acknowledging through cognitive dissonance. Narcissist is not acknowledging their own feelings, is what it is. Because, oh, if you have feelings, feelings are weakness. Feelings can get hurt. Yep, feelings can get hurt. But to do the psychological profile, that's about the only extent that narcissists has got to, is that feelings equal hurt, feelings equal weakness. Yeah, well, everything's feelings. We are feelings. Our thought process, all our thought process is doing is responding to feelings, is processing feelings. Our synapses in our brain are the energy. When we get, if something hurts, if something feels good, if it's hot, if it's cold, those are all feelings. So everything we are is feelings. So scarcity mindset, to just go through itself and say, oh, bad, 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 hide my head in the sand, ignore, cognitive dissonance. That's what's going on. So obviously there's more to it than that. But if we understand those things about an individual that we know, we have to understand that those things are going on in the individual that we don't know. And those things are going on if someone has that tendency when they're in a bad place to exhibit those toxic traits of flipping the script, doing the 180, oh, no, I'm not, you are. No, you're wrong. It's gaslighting. You just don't understand. You're not American. You're un-American. All the shell game, all the blame placing, all those kind of things. If we see that in an individual, we better see it on a societal level also, because it's incipient on a societal level. We can say individual, oh, well, boundaries. I'm just not going to talk to this individual anymore. Yeah, you're not going to talk to that individual anymore, but you're not going to just not talk to any individuals. You're not going to not talk to any more people. What happened is that when we talk about boundaries and boundaries with people, we clearly have seen something in an individual that's unacceptable. So we're not going to talk to that individual. And true, people we're close to, that does have a seemingly traumatic effect on us as an individual. But to understand that we're in a society of individuals that are perpetuating these traits, and in a lot of ways under control of governments that perpetuate a lot of these traits, that's that circle, that's that negative circle, and that's that perpetuating these negative cycles, these cycles of addiction, these cycles of trauma. So to see where these things are happening in society at large is critical, because habitat, again, if the habitat's enabling addiction, then there's likely to be more addicts. The habitat is enabling these negative behavioral patterns, there's likely to be more and more of it. Until people start to understand these things, then they go through habitats like, oh, geez, glad I'm not with that person anymore, but I'm going to vote for this person. and I'm going to put my red, white, and blue shirt on. So understanding habitat, understanding the societal narcissism, colonialism, contemporary society, understanding these things in in the collective consciousness is a critical thing to understand, so we don't, hate to say, so we don't think that we're safe, because that keeping awareness going is super critical. And it's definitely a factor to overcome when we feel unsafe and we're in a society that is not conducive to having safe spaces, and no one knows how to be safe. So many people are perpetuating, so many people want to be safe and want to be okay, but they're perpetuating things that are not conducive to that. Super, super important. So we're trying to get to this space of wellness. And we have to understand that this is a long process, and it's important to keep our wellness within ourselves. And I like to say that building understanding, pattern recognition, just plain dry science type understanding is a source of emotional wellness. Understanding is wellness. Even understanding that there's a lot of work to do is still wellness, because again, the confusion, the misunderstanding is the biggest source of emotional unrest. We have to be in it for the long run. We have to look at what's going on in our life as more than just us, more than just as an individual. It's not just what I'm going through, it's what everyone's going through. It's the societal. Now, all these things, like I said at the beginning, all these things work together. Our understanding of narcissist in the individual is the key. That's the cue. That's the education we get to see it on a societal level. Because if we just think we're dealing with it on an individual level, we miss the boat. Oh, by the way, isn't that narcissistic tendency to just look at it for me, 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 me? I'm trying to heal myself. I'm just trying to heal myself. I'm just trying to heal myself. That's narcissism. That is the problem with the species, and that the human species is so self-centered, it doesn't realize it's trespassing on everything else. It's a very poignant understanding of how life works on this planet, is that actually everything around us facilitates our growth. And to be cognizant of everything around us and everyone around us, and when I say everything, all the other beings, all the other organisms, planet in general, to be cognizant of that is what keeps us in line and what keeps our wellness. So I'm not just looking out for me. That does nothing for my wellness. I'm looking out for me in conjunction with looking out for others. As I understand things in my own level, we share with others. We help other people understand things that are going on in their personal situation, and then on a societal level. What's the habitat? What's the habitat? Oh, by the way, Narcissism 101, the victim of narcissistic abuse, to say it that way, I don't like that term because it implies intention, and narcissist is not intention. It's compulsive, reactive, and constructs is what's happening. The narcissist only wants power so they can avoid responsibility. But true power comes with an equal amount of responsibility. They say power is knowledge. That's not true. Wisdom is power. It's how to use the knowledge. And so I think sharing information is power. That is tangible. And we share information, and that does make a difference. But the person that's got run over by the narcissist, I mean, that's a hallmark of narcissism, is the narcissism bullies their way. pushes their way around, right, is largely disregarding the wellness of the person that they're in the relationship with. And colonial society largely disregards the planet that we walk on. It gets to the point where, hey, do you know that we live on a planet? I mean, that's really the basic conversation with colonialism, basic conversation with a lot of people. Do you know that we live on a planet? It's people are so far away. And look at the trespass. Well, now we can see it. We can see it clearly. Look at the trespass on the planet, trespass on the individual, trespass on the planet. You know why? Because they missed the habitat part. They're not paying attention to the energetic habitat of the person they're in relationship with. They're not paying attention to the physical habitat of the environment that they're in, as in an organism on this planet. Are we keeping track of the parallels? Is anybody taking notes? What are we up to, like 10 right now? But see, this is the thing to understand these parallels, right? And it's just go by feeling. It's how it feels. Our feelings are, I mean, that's all we have. Technically, all we're doing is going by our feelings because our brain is just processing what we feel. Our brain isn't out in space coming up with truly abstract stuff. Some people's brain is, not connected to all the dots, not connected to the ground they walk in, not connected to the other people, not connected to themselves. True. But we can trace back those factors. We can understand scarcity mindset. We can understand insecurity. We can understand avoidance. So nothing exists in the vacuum. There's ways that things work on this planet that governs our species way before the government. The nature is the real growth facilitator. Oh, but wait, nature facilitates growth. Nature has a system of processes that 100% works to encourage our personal development. Colonial society, not so much. Collective, not so much. Same thing, narcissism. Um, anybody have any comments to add at this time?
Not just America can be our soil. When you were saying that people, like they put on their whatever they want to identify with, whether it's a country or entity of, we forget. I traveled to so many countries and I didn't even realize, yeah, you start to sound like you're claiming the government that
Yeah,
it represents.
yeah, gaslight.
And colonialism that happens through there is so crazy. Brain collectively brainwashing or conditioning or ideology because it happens through sport.
Yeah,
So many, there's sports there that creeps, the sports. I don't know, just weird. I
yeah,
never thought about it when you said that. I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that where I wear my Mexico soccer sweater or whatever, and I'm just like, you're right. You gotta watch what you perpetuate in colonialism.
yeah. And that
Mhm.
sports team analogy is a good one. And I've heard people say that before. It's like all the big governments of the world are like sports teams. And it's like
Mhm.
us against them. And that's that false narrative. And it's that false narrative again. Oh, and again, speaking of false narratives, this is one of my personal favorites, is that in contemporary society now, you'll hear the term tribalism to refer to different groups of people um, not getting along because they're different. Um, but really, that whole concept, if And sure, that's happened. People unfamiliar with people, that's a human frailty. Ultimately, ultimately, there's more examples of human ancestors getting along than not getting along. And of course, humans getting along on an individual basis and not getting along. I mean, ultimately, we have to work together as individuals. But to say tribalism is like, oh, people from different groups battling, that's exemplified in colonialism. And there's a big difference between different groups battling for food sources, this kind of thing, versus the annihilation of other groups, versus the complete um, lack of recognition towards other groups, the complete dehumanizing of other groups. Um, Understanding, which I'm fortunate to have some insights to. Um, Traditional cultures, it's like, yeah, people did war on each other, but in a lot of cases they still traded, still intermarried, these kind of things. And the colonialism is like, oh, Russian, to say you're communist or Russian, and that's all convoluted now, anyways. But that war, that huge scale war, that's like those bad traits amplified. So, I mean, and colonialism really is the worst traits of the individual, and those worst traits are perpetuated in society. It's a society of enabling addiction. It's a society of narcissists. It's a society of fear-based mindset, scarcity mindset. That's the narcissist at the core, is the scarcity mindset and the fear-based mindset. Well, we don't get along with others because we're afraid of them. And then turn that person into the enemy. That's the classic. And that's the classic reactive state that we get from a narcissist if we're even with honest intentions to try to help, but the narcissist in their fear based to try to help. Well, if you help someone, you're going to be encouraging their vulnerability, right? And this is what we run into with a narcissist, is that stereotypical classic example overview of conversation with someone trying to have an in-depth conversation with narcissist is modeling vulnerability, trying to give someone a safe space to talk, trying to give somebody a place to get in tune with their emotions. And that's the threat. That's what the narcissist perceives as a threat. And so then they perceive that as a threat. So whoever's presenting the threat has to be the enemy. So then we're labeled the enemy. Oh, the hippies, labeled an enemy. The peaceful people are the enemy. Oh, colonialism. That's what we see now. The National Guard comes out against the enemy. The National Guard comes out against people protesting for clean water. The enemy, and to think about, and even to think about, this thing about having enemies, and there's a concept that the greatness of the enemies determine how great you are. And so, like, the biggest threat to colonialism is the freaking pot smoking hippies, basically. It's like the non-violent people are the threat. So, oh man, seriously, this is, yeah,
I'll take
really
I'll
having
take
this
tribalism.
conversation.
I'll be tribalism over genocidal all day long.
Right. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Tribalism versus genocidal.
Genocidal.
Right. Right. There's a
That's the
difference, but that's
word.
the false narrative. Thanks, Gray. That's excellent observation. That's the difference. It's, and that's the colonialism. That's a narcissistic part of colonialism that wants to flip the script and say, oh, it's tribalism. It's, you know, oh, you're fighting, like you're just being tribal because these people were, you know, warring with each other. And of course they have no idea what they're talking about. Like which people, you know, and you always hear that, you know, the native people, the tribe, like which of the 500 people are talking about? And I always say, yeah, because there's infinite grayscale from like super, super peaceful to less peaceful. But even some of the people that were known to be less peaceful, if you really know, and I'm super grateful that I am, they're also um, the most peaceful people too. So people that are most warlike, according to America, are also people that have the most compassion, uh, firsthand experience. And to see that and to hear the common narrative and then to see for yourself just the stark differences that's what's being told. Um, and there's the false narrative again. But yeah, colonialism, the biggest enemy is the peaceful people. How does that happen? So, you know, are we backing that up? And all the parts of colonialism, the perpetuating the ideologies with force. And that's how America got here, forced its way in. And that's how America stays America, and make laws and obey the law or face threat of force. Mandated behavior via threat of force. False narratives, freedom via mandated behavior. You're free, but all the laws say what not to do. Narcissism again, what you can't do. It's not recommendations that, hey, you shouldn't do this. You know, this isn't really conducive to wellness. It's don't do this. Don't do this or you're going to get hurt. Don't do this or a threat. There's a threat. There's always a threat.
Oh, oh, oh. Don't they
So
sometimes call it an ultimatum or whatever?
ultimatums. Yeah, the ultimatums. The
Was
ultimatums, the
I making noise?
yeah,
Sorry.
a little bit rattling around. But the fact that, you know, we get run over in a narcissistic relationship, we get run over. And the narcissist plaything, to be there for the narcissist when the narcissist wants you there in whatever capacity the narcissist wants you. Oh, slavery. So narcissism, racism, slavery aspect. We went through that. And then we talk about wellness, and people are all wondering why the healthcare system sucks. Well, who created it? It's a colonial, it's a colonial wellness, and it's a colonial industry. It's an industry with the false narrative of wellness. It's taken wellness and it's commoditized it to where that wellness isn't the main goal. The addiction is, the printed currency is. Capitalism's the next one in the Narcissism Edu. Sneak peek, by the way.
Recently,
That's
with
the
that,
addiction.
I thought that healthcare was given to us like when crack was introduced to the world, like when the crack um, dealer says, "Here's some free stuff," and then you really believe in it, and then it changes. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
It was
that's no,
probably
that's a
always,
false narrative. That's exactly what we were talking about. And that's why
yeah,
I
like
said I used the example of Bernie Sanders. It's like you show something like good. It's like, oh, here's healthcare. Look, here's healthcare. Here's the best healthcare. Oh, and it only costs a little bit, and now it costs a little bit more. Now it's like unaffordable, and you like literally commoditizing everything. Commoditization, again, capitalism is the next uh, Narcissism Edu. It's the commoditization of everything, including people. And if you can't pay, then you can't live. You literally have to pay to live. So that you're only there for the narcissist to the extent that they need you and to the exact extent, but not when they don't need you. But you have to be there when they want you, what they want you there for. Racism, slavery, colonialism, where people are commoditized that are just cogs in the wheel that are a cash crop. In colonial societies, people are a cash crop. They are perpetuating the ideologies, whatever those may be.
Really, it's you got to do I got $900 insulin that you got to find a way to not have your immune system need that or be dependent on it. That's the solution, is you got to find a way that your body won't be dependent on that.
Well,
And
yeah,
there is with a lot of them. Obviously, with a lot of other very chronic illnesses, you got to use some. But in general, if you can figure that part out, you're good with,
well,
nobody wants to do $900 insulin.
Yeah, and all the wellness is all derivative and pharmaceutical and chemical. It's all chemical related, and it's not really wellness. It's a product. And it's like, oh, you've got this symptom, and like, here's a product for the symptom. Here's a product for the symptom. What's the collateral damage? What are the side effects? What are the side effects of being in a relationship with a narcissist? You don't get well. That's the biggest side effect. You don't grow. That's the biggest side effect. All the contemporary health system, all the pharmaceuticals, you don't grow well. You don't get better. It's just that borderline again, another parallels. Tell me that overall, the healthcare system doesn't help you get better. It just keeps you good enough to keep coming back. Keeps you alive just long enough to milk every drop of life out of you. Narcissism 101. Maximizing everything. Narcissist takes every single thing that it can get from you and keeps you just there, giving your maximum output, but still hanging in there. And it's always that little borderline. And sometimes that border gets crossed, so it's not okay. And then, it makes it so that it's just barely okay again. Or if you look at it, that's narcissism, hallmarks of narcissism. You're there just to the point where it's barely acceptable and keeps hanging on. And then the healthcare system, that you're there just barely hanging on, just barely clinging on. I wrote this one earlier, the sole modality of to be in control, but not of self, only of others, and only to the convoluted end of avoiding accountability. To be in control. Power. Power, control via force. Narcissism, colonialism. Linear mindset, scarcity mindset. The get, take is get away from itself. The narcissist, the construct of the narcissist, its modality is to get away from itself, the cognitive dissonance, and to fill that void with everything except for what goes there. Addiction 101, hallmarks of addiction. Filling the voids, substances, ideologies, materialism. America is materialism. So where does that come from? Direct correlation. Filling the voids. It's a society based on filling those voids left by lack of understanding self, lack of connection to self, lack of connection to others, lack of understanding that all these materialistic things are not fulfilling. And when so many people aren't fulfilled with materialistic things, when so many people aren't fulfilled with ideologies, when so many people are just not okay and are not interested in going along with all these false narratives. That's tangible, that's real human behavior, understanding human behavior. And the lack of ability to have important conversations in a relationship with narcissists, and the lack of ability to have them with the government. All the red tape, all the things that should be just basic, and people say human rights, but that's a derivative of colonialism. We don't have rights. We have obligations. We have ideas that need constant attention. There's no set it and forget it. That's a linear mindset ideology to say that, oh, people have unalienable rights. No, they're 100% alienable. All you need to do is disregard them for a second. That's not understanding relationships. All the understandings we have about growing healthy humans, all the understandings we have about growing healthy humans and having healthy, cohesive cultures depends on relationships with those concepts and maintaining constant upkeep and constant refreshing these concepts, constantly refreshing the importance of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness, constantly refreshing our relationships with each other, constantly refreshing our understanding that we don't understand everything, constantly refreshing our understanding that it's critical to understand as much as we can, constantly in a relationship with our cognitive growth process, constantly in a relationship with everything around us, and giving to everything around us, giving back, making sure that is a reciprocal relationship, making sure all of our relationships are reciprocal. These things are critical. Um, when we talk to narcissist, if we say, oh, you're being racist, you're narcissist, you're greedy, those kind of things, these labels, we used a lot of narcissist colonialism. It's not about the labels, just putting the labels. No one cares. No one cares if they're greedy. No one cares if they're racist. No one cares if they're a narcissist. That's the thing. They don't have that. They plain don't have that capacity. The narcissist is so busy trying to avoid themselves. Of course, you're just a long ways off. So ultimately, we need to understand human behavior on a real level so we can outgrow that, so we can grow into a place of understanding, so we can outwit the nitwits, to say it that way. And so we can start defragmenting this myriad of things that's built a sick system that we are unable to avoid. We might be able to get out of a interpersonal relationship with toxic people, but we're not getting out of our relationship with the collective. So it's just critical to understand that our relationship with the collective and not get stuck into that me thing, because that's narcissism also. What's the collective? What are these things that we're perpetuating in contemporary society? And the government doesn't need our buy-in. The government, the ideology of America that, these rights are self-evident. No, they're not self-evident. It's self-evident that it's self-evident that everyone should be treated as individuals and fairly and with respect, but that requires an ongoing contribution. that requires ongoing upkeep. It doesn't just sit there. You can't just write it down and expect it to magically maintain itself. These things that we need to have cohesive societies need to be bought into and understood by each individual, not as a collective, not that it's written down somewhere, not because people 200 years ago saw that there was a couple of these things and that's what we're going with now. Oh, and then again, didn't follow them up, because don't forget, the other thing about narcissism is the I love you, but it's not reflected in your actions. And America, for the people, not reflected in your actions. So thanks for coming along to tonight's wellness workshop. This was Narcissism Edu, Colonialism. Greg Smith, my biz guide, Business Being Human, your host. I'm going to sign off of Facebook now. Thanks everybody for showing up and tagging along on Friday night. Hope that was valuable. Hope that helps in your wellness journey, and no shortage of things to do, but that's good. Our wellness matters. There's a emotional wellness component to understanding human behavior. To say that that's what we got to do is probably the biggest understatement ever. So everybody, have a good night. Thanks a lot. Be well.